This is one of the goals and purposes of Casa Foundation for International Development, to create a platform like this where people can come together and discuss intelligently the pains that we suffer, those things, but to also look at ways of proffering solutions and making suggestions that can help our leaders to forge a way ahead. It becomes increasingly important, like I said, to define clearly what values we stand for as a people and why those values matter to us. One hallmark of greatness and prosperity of nations, and the implication its people, rests on the development and management and sustainability of the key resources that God has given us. The ability to develop skills, to manage these resources, to create wealth from them, and to transfer them from one generation to the other is also a factor that is critical to our success as a people. The corollary is also true for nations that fail to develop the resources or manage the resources that God has endowed them with. They continue to play the game of catch-up. Corporate strategists usually claim that it is not the size of the resources you have or that you're endowed with as a nation that matters. It is actually the capacity and the skills or the ability to manage these God-given resources that matters, and how you are able also to create wealth with the kind of resources with which you have been endowed.
So I'm going to start by telling you a story, and I'll let you know when to go to the next slide. I'm going to stay here for a few minutes. So I want to start by telling you a story, and as Oli mentioned, I had the great opportunity of being an entrepreneur, but that wasn't always my life. Just over 5 years ago, I was in a role, I worked in pharmaceuticals, and I worked at a variety of different organizations in both Canada and the US. And then, as many entrepreneurs do, I had this wild idea one day that I would become an entrepreneur. And it wasn't an idea that I had spent enough time probably thinking about. It was probably naive in its own merit, because I would see vendors coming in and selling our organization services, whether it be management consulting or leadership or people capability. And I would sit back and I would look at their invoices as I was paying them, and I would say, I could do that. I could build a company that did that. I could make that happen. And so these ideas were percolating in my mind, and then I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and we're always very lucky to get the holiday season off. And so we got the Christmas holidays off. I went home and I came back from the holiday season and I resigned. And it seemed so exciting at the time. I had so many ideas, so many things that I wanted to do, and I had a vision of what it is that I wanted to accomplish. But as I mentioned, the decision in and of itself may have been a little bit naive. Here I was, I'm the daughter of South Asian parents, so my parents were devastated by the announcement. They had no idea what had happened to me over the holidays, that I decided to give up my corporate job, my company car, and my salary to take the bus everywhere and eat tuna fish sandwiches. I couldn't quite translate the difference in choice. And so I had my parents who were telling their friends that I had taken a sabbatical. And then here I was, it was my last day at Johnson & Johnson, which was my last company, and I had packed up my bag. If any of you have ever resigned, you know this feeling. You're packing up your boxes and you wonder how in 5 years everything that you've done can fit into one box. And I had given up my corporate car, and so I needed to get my sister to pick me up from the office. And so I was standing at the front of the office, and my sister came and picked me up, and she quickly drove me downtown Toronto. And if any of you spend any time downtown, you sort of know some of the restaurants and bars and the exciting scene that is the financial district. And she took me to a restaurant called Key, which is right downtown in the core. And I kind of thought, oh, this will be nice. And when I walked into the restaurant, I realized it was a party that my friends and family had put on. That was, this is becoming an entrepreneur, let's all celebrate this adventure that you're about to take on. And I remember being so excited that day, and thinking in my mind that a year from now, I'm going to throw the same party, and I'm going to invite all of them, but I'm going to host them, and it'll be a celebration of the year. It'll be a celebration of the success that I had, and I was so invigorated by the energy that was there. Now, if you can fast forward in time, that was January. It was April, and I find myself back at the same restaurant, at the restaurant Key, and I'm sitting outside at a meeting with a colleague and a friend who also happens to be an entrepreneur. And it's a Friday afternoon, and he says to me, you know, this is why we became entrepreneurs. Look at all these people in their big corporate suits walking the corridors of the financial districts. They can't leave a Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock to have a drink. They have to do their work. And he said, this is why we became entrepreneurs. And he had this great smile on his face. And I started crying. And I said to him, I can't even afford this drink. And I looked at him and I said, you have no idea what my life has been like for the past 4 months. I have one client, and my client is my friend. And I have no idea what it is that I'm going to do with myself. And I have had that moment in time wondered what decision I had made. And this person, he was a great person in my life.
I came to a Canadian company, a white company, who I understand they paid certain amount of money to be able to come. But they had not nowhere to share that. They brought them to my facility, and they did not even get in touch with me personally. They went for another white person. So finally they came, they liked what they saw, they wanted to collaborate, they wanted to do this, and they went back. And that was the last one that I had. And the next time I had, they wanted to bring another group. You know how many people came in that group? The first group? How many? 25.
Wow.
I did the calculation. You don't get their extra. I'm serious. No. You know what? We are brothers here. Let's face reality. If we are not talking to ourselves, if we are deceiving ourselves, I did the calculation. For those people to come, the extra cost and the cost of bringing them is enough for me to put the same time to build that small capacity we want right there in Nigeria to train people, and it functions.
You see?
Okay. That one that I showed you, the first one, not is small. It costs us just about $300,000 to put that facility in there. Less than a year, we got our money back. So the issue is, our government, the system itself is corrupt. The third point that I have, why it doesn't work. If you have a small boat, it's easy to control. If you have a big boat, or a ocean liner, before it turns, it goes 200 kilometers before it's able to turn back. I think Nadeem was talking about innovation. Innovation often doesn't work or show in a very large environment. The large environment can adopt it from a place where it works. If we have politicians here, this is my challenge to you. And I talked about dealing with the waste issue later in the afternoon. I want to say I don't want to work on dealing with the waste issue or Abuja. Because it will not work. The system is too large to show innovation. And the system is too complex. And I would say, just give me a small arm, 100,000 people, I'll show you it works, and then you can scale it up. So those are my three answers to your question.
Thank you very much. We'll take more questions.
I have a question for Dr. Abiola.
Yes.
And I wanted to know, regarding the biofuel production, are there regulations here in Canada that regulate the production of biofuel? And my next question is that if there are regulations, would that be, for it to work in Africa, do you not think that obviously there should be those regulations implemented as well to, to be able to facilitate that? And the second question, are there any hazardous or environmental issues in producing biofuels that may cause harm to communities? Because those are often issues environmental issues that affect places or communities in America.
Thank you. And I would invite anyone else who wants to ask questions after this, just to join us at the microphone. It's probably the easiest way to coordinate people.
Yes, in terms of regulations, there are regulations, especially in terms of the product quality that you produce at the end. If you have a facility, one of the requirements of the Canadian government is that your final product must meet, I gave two systems, the D29000 or the ASTM-D requirement. That's for the product. But you also have to report, what we do here is to report the technique, just like the oil and gas company, that are emitting a lot of sulfur and everything to the environment. So I have to report the way we pay our single report on the amount of sulfur, which is always zero. But they just want to put that, they make it very difficult. But you have to report on some of the quality issues to the government. In terms of environmental,
Why? I learned this because there will be new safety standards, they will be innovating. That's why they put 2 years expiry date, life of the car seat. You know, most of the people, in 2 years they have another child, they can't use the same car seat. And then when they're of a certain age, they will buy another car seat, and these are not cheap. So if that is the case, that because they're going to invent a safer car seat, it's all in the air, we put expiry date. What does that mean? We might as well put expiry date on our cars, and after 2 years, you can't use this because we're going to invent safer cars, right? So what I found there, very interestingly, is what's wrong? You know what's wrong? What's wrong is consumers are not buying products because they want it. They're buying products because somebody beats you by 2 by 4 by law. Then if you don't buy it, you go to jail. Or you can't drive your car. My little baby, my kids when they were born, we didn't have to take a car seat, buy a new car seat to bring them home. And we use all this safety, big thing about safety and environment. Sometimes we get too bought, but they're always conflicting interest. Always. So I hope that helps you understand that, hey, we're going to take all the brains back to Africa now. Africa is no more wild. The troubled countries are very few. Politically, we are stable. But we are also taken away by some greed too. A few people become greedy. But I can't understand how did Gaddafi open a bank account in London and put in $90-some billion when if I want to open an account, I have to know they want to know my grandmother's maiden name. Yeah, where did it come from? Yeah, suddenly how does this happen? So I think if you search inside and find out, hey, who feeds these guys? Yeah, the dictator of Egypt, he was no good anymore. Yeah, because he turned around, against the dictator, no good. So did Gaddafi. So did the guy in Iraq. Yeah, that dog is my dog. He's okay. I hope that explains
what Asia was and has become. We call them the Asia tiger. And somebody recently was talking about the lions of Africa are coming. And I believe that. The lions of Africa are coming and they are taking the space that they should take. But how do you sustain the effort to become the tiger of Asia in the same manner? The big question is education. That's the big question. That's the nuts of the matter here. There's no question about that. You can have natural resources, but if you don't have education, you'll never go to the next level, which is manufacturing, fabrication. China developed not only because of natural resources, which we didn't have very much, it's because of manufacturing. And people had a certain level of education. Japan did the same thing. All of those new nations, because they were able to bring